Okay, welcome back for part 2 of the Dayton B652 Air. This is the sound demo video. I have them set up. I looked at a bunch of different bookshelf speakers that I have, and the Sony CS5, the Pioneer BS22s. I have some other off-brand ones, and I have some of my own, and none of them. The closest ones that worked for me to compare uh, are these Technics. I'll show you over here. I got a set of my bookshelf speakers, which I know sound better than anything I have down here. And then there's Sony CS5, Pioneer BS22s, and then another set of bookshelf speakers I built. And then some old, what are they, the Optimus XA88s or something, but they need refoaming. So those won't be doing much. So I was looking for something that has similar driver quality, build quality, etc. And these Technics I found at Goodwill sport a very basic polypropylene 6.5-inch woofer, just like these. These obviously have a better quality air motion transformer or tweeter, where these are just rocking the good old paper tweeter. And come around back, because somebody might care. I don't even know what model these are. I don't even know if it was focused. I'm knocking stuff over. Sure, 8 ohm, whatever. I don't know anything about them. They were at Goodwill for like $10. They're in pretty decent shape. Looking at the back, these are, if you didn't notice, these are ported, and they are in a bit of a larger enclosure, and they're ported. So I was worried the bass was going to be much better, just because bigger cabinet and port usually equals more bass. But actually surprised, these don't really have a whole lot much more bass than these, which means these have hardly any bass at all. So we're just going to test with these, because I don't know what these cost new. They're probably from the 90s. But yeah, we're just going to go with this, because I felt like anything else I put up against them is just obviously going to sound much better, and it's more expensive. These Techniques, I don't know if you can go buy them anywhere, but even if you did, they would cost less. So give me a second here. All right, I'm just going to run through a handful of copyright-free. I'll do a couple copyright-free songs just on the Daytons, just to demo them, and then we'll switch over and do a little bit of A/B switching back and forth between the Dayton and the Techniques. So this first section, I'll let you know when I switch over. But for this first section, these first two songs are just going to be the Dayton B652 Air. Okay, now for the next part, I'll be switching back and forth between the Dayton B652 Air and these Technics 90 speakers, whatever they are. Let's see, and when I switch, I'll let you know ahead of time that I'm going to switch to that speaker, just in case you can't tell or don't notice or whatever. So, we will start with these. We'll start on the B652s. Switch songs, yeah? Alright, here we go. Techniques. Back to the Dayton. Back to the Technique. Dayton. Techniques. There at the end, I switched it back to the Dayton without saying anything, so you can see if you notice the difference or not. What I'm mostly noticing, the Dayton B652 Airs, they mostly sound good because of the AMT tweeter. So it definitely is an improvement over the other version, but they still, to me, one of the biggest issues with them is the woofer. It does put out some decent, tight bass, but it's not that much. And this room, or my space here, is, as you can see, I have acoustic treatment everywhere. In a typical more empty room with more hard surfaces, the bass will definitely, I don't want to say definitely, but it'll be better and probably more of it. The quality of it, I don't know. You can't expect too much from a very budget woofer. I'm excited to do the crossovers in these because I think a lot of the issue with the woofer is that there's no filter on it at all. It just comes straight in, and there's no crossover on the woofer at all. So it's just running wild up to probably 5, 6, 7,000 hertz, and it's going to get into territory that it can't reproduce and it's going to start to distort and everything. So adding a filter in and cutting it off before it gets to that point should definitely help. And then even doing maybe a better second order on the tweeter will help clean it up even more, because the AMT tweeter in these is quite good. The off-axis response is good. The soundstage is good. It's just too bad it's stuck in a box with a bad woofer. The Techniques, on the other hand, I don't remember when the last time I listened to them. I know I hooked them up after I got them to make sure they worked and everything, but that could have been a year and a half, 2 years ago. So I didn't know how they were going to sound compared to the Daytons. Being in a slightly larger enclosure and being ported, their bass is a little bit, I wouldn't necessarily say they have more bass, it's just a little deeper, which makes sense. But I was also surprised how decent those little paper tweeters sound. I can't imagine these things have much of a crossover in them because they look like pretty basic, Sears special, speakers. So I was actually quite surprised how decent they sound. Yeah, I don't. I mean, if you find something like that in a Goodwill or a thrift store, could possibly be a better option for you than something like these Daytons. But if I had to live with one of these sets of speakers every day, I could only have one. That's all I could have. I would pick the Technics or Techniques. I just as good as the AMT tweeter, I do like it. It's just the woofer in the B652s for me. It's not the lack of bass, and I know, like I said, if I put them in a different room, it could fix some of that. It's the fact that there's no filter on the woofer, and it just seems like it's running away with the frequencies into frequencies that it can't reproduce, and it's distorting, and it just seems like it muddies up the image for me. So when I do the crossover mod for these, and I haven't, like I said, I haven't looked at anybody else's crossover mod because I don't want to look necessarily at what somebody else did and have it really influence what I have in mind. So I'm going to do mine first, and then I'll look at other people's, and then we'll work on a video. And if possible, I want to build just a drop-in crossover that anybody can pop a speaker out, hook new wires to, put speakers back in, and be done. Just a really simple crossover mod, and then maybe lead into a little bit more sophisticated crossover mod for these. And because it's one of those things, it's like, these are cheap speakers, how much money do you want to drop into them? Because you start dropping a lot of money into them, for most people it'd just make more sense just to buy better speakers and not have to do the work. But some people like DIY, so we'll do it. But I think that's going to be it for these. If you're looking at these and they're in your budget, there's not a whole lot else out there in the $50 to $60 price range, new, anyway. And shipping prices are so ridiculous. Finding a decent pair of bookshelf speakers on eBay for $50 or something are likely you're gonna have to pay shipping, and you're gonna be probably upwards around 100. So the fact that you can pick these up off Amazon or partsexpress.com, I think around somewhere usually in between 50 and $75 is a really good deal. So if they fit your budget, or if that's your budget, I really wouldn't hesitate. These are a good speaker for their price. So a lot of their shortcomings, I'm not trying to bash them into the ground. It's just, I'm just pointing out shortcomings that a lot of speakers at this price range would normally have. So I think that's it. All right, guys, like and subscribe, and hopefully come back for more.